Hi, my name is Dr. Ishani Rao, and I'm an NHS GP, conservation medic, and animal rights activist. In our fourth workshop for our Protect the Mind series for Protect the Wild, I will be discussing a really important topic, which is how to manage tension between activists or other activist organisations. In our previous sessions, we've covered the topics of burnout, trauma, and staying motivated within activism. I hope that I've covered some key symptoms to look out for and some useful coping strategies to improve your mental and physical health despite our challenging roles. We will revisit these topics in our online interactive sessions where we will delve a bit deeper into these issues. We will also have a chance to share our thoughts and experiences through facilitated discussion. Rob, the founder of Protect the Wild, has been working hard to find out which topics people wanted covered in our mental health sessions. Something that's frequently come up and that I think is really important to discuss is the experience of conflict between activists or between various activist groups. The Oxford English Dictionary defines conflict as a serious disagreement or argument, typically a protracted one. The term protracted here refers to a process that is lengthy and complicated to resolve, and these drawn out tensions can, of course, be very stressful for our bodies and our nervous systems. This person has described hostile attitudes from other activists as a leading trigger for burnout, stating that backstabbing, lack of trust, and general unkind attitudes from other activists can take a greater toll than the animal rights work itself. Nobody's Paying Me to Cry is the first study that I could find that investigates causes of burnout as described by animal rights activists in the States. They stratified reasons for people abandoning animal rights campaigns into 1. Internal causes related to activists' psychological state and coping mechanisms. 2. External causes relating to the overwhelming scope of justice and to backlash from the general public for activism. And 3. Within movement causes related to toxic movement cultures and the way that activists treat one another. In a number of groundbreaking studies of activists, including this one, it was found that the biggest cause of their burnout was actually how we treat one another. This study, published in the Journal of Social Movement Studies, also describes that demographics such as women, LGBT communities, or those from ethnic minorities are at an increased risk of suffering mistreatment within activist organizations. In this study, every activist of color mentioned racism within the movement as a cause for their burnout. Over half of the women in this study stated that sexism was the cause for them leaving the movement. Unfortunately, it seems as though sexism, racism, homophobia, ableism, classism, and transphobia are still prominent issues within animal rights groups. Far too many activists have approached me to disclose how they've been poorly treated by other activists. I've witnessed bullying within the movement, and I've been excluded from certain animal rights organizations for escalating this. We too often seem to be unable to resolve conflict and to work together despite our shared goals. We need to find the same sense of compassion for each other as we do for the animals, and to remember that we are all fighting the same fight. It's vital to speak up and advocate against all forms of oppression to ensure a healthy culture within our movement. Check in with your colleagues from underrepresented communities. If you feel as though somebody might be going through a hard time or is facing additional stressors, then speak to them in private to see how they're coping. Try and give people a platform and listen to their ideas and concerns. Check on people who've drifted away from activism to find out why. The current political and social situation is really disconcerting and uncomfortable for many of us, and it's important to know that we have allies within the movement. If you see injustice happening, then escalate this to demonstrate that you don't agree with the actions or comments being made. This could either be in a formal and organized setting or in an informal manner by calmly challenging the behavior that you find unacceptable. Reminding people that they have others to look out for them can be a huge incentive for people to stay motivated within activism. The way that we have discussions and communicate differences of opinion is really important too. Before making any heated decisions, I would always discuss big actions with a mentor or a trusted colleague, or even with people who are removed from the movement to gain an external perspective. It's easy to react hastily and mindlessly during times of frustration or anger. Rather than calling people out in public spaces such as social media or during activism events, try and arrange a meeting or discuss the issue in private. You could always ask a third party or another panel to attend to facilitate conflict resolution on neutral grounds. It happens far too often that I see activist and animal rights groups tearing each other down on public forums and social media. Far too often, I see non activists not taking our cause seriously as we don't even present a united front. A recent article in the New Yorker about animal rights activists states instead of planning actions, many activists now spend their time litigating microaggressions and small disputes between their ranks. Does that sound familiar to you? If we want to be seen as a credible and trustworthy organisation, then we have to manage internal conflict with much more dignity and respect. The phrase, "a house divided cannot stand," is really relevant here, and we must remember this within the animal rights movement. If you organise activism events or have a leadership role in an organisation, then you're in a really important position to be able to facilitate peacemaking between activists. We have all seen how good leaders have the ability to mediate tense situations using effective communication, negotiation, and motivational skills. I really like that in this diagram it specifies promoting healthy failures and making difficult conversations easy. Often, we can view these experiences as negative. However, when managed correctly, we have the ability to transform these into learning experiences. I will discuss skills for effective leadership further in our online interactive workshop. Have you ever had a difficult conversation that went well and was effective in achieving your goal? It might interest you to know that the early stages of conflict are actually described as times of potential growth. Effective management methods and communication during these initial periods can actually strengthen respect, tolerance, and shared understanding between individuals or groups. If we allow these circumstances to progress into feelings of blame, anger, and then division, it can be much more difficult to revert these emotions back into a constructive and respectful platform. Here are some of the most common causes of conflict. Inadequate communication, including not being specific, making assumptions, and inadequately resolving prior disagreements. Personality clashes, when people have very different communication styles, character traits, and approaches to problems that might not work well together. A lack of trust in the other party given previous issues or a history of conflict. A lack of resources, such as financial or time constraints or inadequate training in a field. Fear, including fear of the unknown and reluctance to change current protocols. Varied values and different goals or ideas about how to achieve those goals. Poor leadership styles that make it difficult to facilitate cooperation within teams. Strong feelings about emotive topics, including animal rights, climate change, politics, and humanitarian issues. And structure within organizations, including imbalances of power. Often we can begin to feel uneasy within a conversation and we can perceive that tension is growing. It can be really useful to identify what the causes of conflict might be in order to plan how to address them. Some useful techniques that we can employ when communicating in general are to clearly and concisely convey your message, practice active listening rather than planning on how we're going to respond. We should cater our message to your audience, demonstrate empathy for other viewpoints, and focus on solutions rather than dwelling on problems. We should try and avoid vague or complicated language, interrupting the other party, forgetting to consider the specific needs of our audience, being dismissive of their points even if we don't agree, and blaming the other person. So, what are some structures that we can utilise to facilitate effective and calm communication? Well, the LEAPS framework is one used by the NHS during our conflict resolution training to reduce the risk of confrontation. We can apply this to high pressure situations or when a lot of emotion is being evoked by a situation. I especially use this really simple tool during mental health discussions, when discussing children with their anxious parents, or when dealing with breaking bad news to patients. We should use active and opening listening skills. This is a vital initial step in the communication process and is a fundamental skill to understand a problem and to be able to respond effectively. Empathy allows us to take genuine interest in the other party's situation and to reduce the risk of making assumptions before you've listened to them. Asking questions will allow you to further discuss any points where there is a lack of agreement between both parties. It also allows you to demonstrate that you've been listening and thinking about the issue. Paraphrasing your understanding to repeat them in your own words can be effective to highlight any areas of concern or contention. Summarizing areas of disagreement and agreement can allow both parties to determine whether they're on the same page or whether there are areas that still require further discussion. This method has been demonstrated to inspire behavior change by allowing individuals to feel heard, validated, and understood. I really enjoyed adding the frog there. Much of the scientific study of nonverbal communication can be attributed to Darwin's 1872 book, The Expression of Emotions in Man and Animals. We know that our body language and tone of voice contribute to a significant proportion of overall communication, alongside the language that we use. On the left column, I've noted some nonverbal communication methods that will improve rapport and create empathy between two parties. These include a hug or a handshake if appropriate, making eye contact, appearing to be relaxed, holding a confident and inviting posture. One might use facial expressions such as smiling or responding to verbal cues, or have an open position held towards the person. We might use nodding or other signs of positive validation and subtly mirror the other person's body language. Indicators that somebody is feeling tense and that a conversation is not going successfully could be that they are frowning or grimacing, they're fidgeting, or they're holding muscle tension. They might appear to be distracted or staring or playing with other objects, or have a blank facial expression that's not responsive to what you're saying. They could demonstrate signs of anxiety, such as nail biting or picking their skin. Leaning away with crossed arms or legs demonstrates closed body language that might mean that the other person isn't engaging very well. It's important to recognize whether you're subconsciously performing these actions. And if you note that the other party is becoming defensive, then you might want to start utilizing conflict de escalation techniques. If somebody demonstrates these signs during discussion, try to engage their interests and to put them back at ease. You might want to adjust what you say and how you're saying it in order to achieve the outcome that you want. Try and show some more empathy to the individual, which might re engage them. If the negative behavior changes, you'll know that they're ready to negotiate with you effectively and might be more open to persuasion to your cause. At times, when you can feel your blood pressure increasing and stress hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol surging through your body, we can engage with some simple techniques to calm down our nervous systems. These will allow us to take some valuable time to calm ourselves and to plan how we're going to engage in an effective conversation. Basic breathing techniques, such as the 2-7-8 method, can help us to immediately reset our bodies. Take a deep breath in through your nose for 2, hold for 7, and then breathe out through your mouth for 8. So let's do that together. In through your nose for 2, hold for 7, and breathe out through your mouth for 8. You will notice that this feels very similar to a sigh, which is a physiological process vital for lung oxygenation and effective respiration and gas exchange. If you need to take a time out from a discussion that's becoming heated, then that's completely appropriate. It could be a break for a few minutes to allow yourself to collect your thoughts, or even a break for a few hours while you formulate a strategy about how best to proceed. Taking a break can be vital to calm down our heart rates and to allow us to think straight when we feel calmer. Just try to avoid storming out of the room. Simple ways that we can look after our bodies during aggravated encounters are ones such as the methods which I've described in our webinar on trauma. This could be focusing on your sense of smell by inhaling something scented, or trying to become more present by counting as many objects of a certain colour as possible. It can even be effective to perform gentle massage therapies or tapping exercises on areas that can hold stress, such as your temples or your jaw. Another mental technique, which is useful is to contemplate why the other person might hold their belief. Have they had families, jobs, or an upbringing that has influenced their perception of the world? Have they been brought up in different cultures or not been exposed to the same experiences or learning as you? It's also useful to remind yourself that your beliefs and understanding have shifted with time to allow you to be where you are today. How can we use communication methods to try and allow our beliefs to complement rather than combat each other's and to bring them to where we are? When we spend a lot of time with each other and invest so much energy working on our important tasks, it can involve a lot and it can evolve and evoke a lot of emotion. It's really important that when clashes arise, we try and remember all of the beliefs that we have in common. When you feel anger or resentment towards another group, try and focus on all of the values that you do share. Differences can so often seem huge during times of conflict, but keep in mind that often the other person might be trying to advocate for the movement in a way that we don't fully understand yet. It might genuinely be that we do truly clash with the other group in our personalities and our ideologies. If that is the case, can our energy be better spent on other causes than focused on anger at the other party? If you've been to any of my mental health talks or events, you'll know that I love a good sharing circle. These organised safe spaces give individuals a platform to express their thoughts in a facilitated and moderated manner. Holding regular check in sessions with individuals or in a group can be a really useful way of gauging how activists are feeling about certain events, initiatives, or activities. It's constructive to use a facilitator that has experience in holding these sessions to navigate and de escalate any emotive topics. You can take training in effectively holding a sharing circle, and there's a lot of useful information about how to do this online. Here are some resources that I hope you find useful. An incredible mentorship scheme is the Animal Activism Mentorship, which is a free multinational program supporting animal rights activists to reach their full potential. I've signed up and I've been allocated to a mentor already, so I'm really looking forward to learning some things and running ideas by them. Some brilliant articles include Harvard's program on negotiation, including about effective leadership. Seeds for Change is a UK-wide network of training collectives organising action and positive social change. They have a brilliant booklet available online called Working with Conflict in Our Groups, a guide for grassroots activists, which is well worth a read. The Conflict Resolution Network provides free training materials, practical activities, and self-study guides which are really concise and easy to follow. Thank you for listening to the fourth workshop for Protect the Wild. Animal rights activist Linda Bell gave me kind permission to use her wonderful piece of art to close this webinar. I hope that you can join us for our online interactive session about interactivist tension. Thank you for your incredible work and for making the world a kinder place.